Alright, welcome back. Let's make this form more secure by adding extra layers of protection. As it stands currently, we are receiving input in whatever form it is sent. Let's fix that. So, let's try out the first one. After receiving the name, we want to trim it. Let's do that. So, the name will be equal to the trim, and then what do we want to trim? The name itself. The name has been trimmed now. After trimming, we want to strip all the slashes. So the same name that has been trimmed, we want to use the strip slashes on it. So what needs to go into the parentheses is the name. I think there's a misspell here. Strip slashes. Okay. So after these two, we want to remove all special characters. Same process with the function HTML special class. And then we type the name. How I wish they would just magically make one function which will solve all of this in one line. That would definitely be complicated. Okay. So let's test this out with the first field. If I input Robert and submit, you can see that stroke that I put has been removed. And now we'll just repeat this for the rest of the code, which means we'll just do the same thing for the rest. But this is a long way of doing that, and in programming, this is very bad practice. The best thing we can do is make a function for this, because we keep repeating the same lines of code multiple times. So let's create a function to solve this. So I'll put my function below the if block. This is it. The first thing we do is type the keyword function, which means we're about to make a function. And let's give it a name. What name will be suitable? Let's put input validator. And now the input validator will need to accept an input. So in the parentheses, let's name this input. Let's give it a variable of input. And now that input, which will be accepted, will need to be trimmed. So it's basically the same thing here. I'll just copy and paste that. And just change the name from name to input. So now, if you look at the code I just did, we are accepting an input inside of this function. We'll trim this input, strip slash this input, and then we'll remove all special characters. And finally, we can return that input. Awesome. We are done with our function now. So we can get rid of the former code. This one, we can just get rid of it now. And all we have to do now is just call out the function with its respective data. So this time around, I'll have the name. Let me bring it back first so that it becomes more clear. So now I have the name, and the name will be equal to the function name, which is input validator. Let's type that. This. And the input validator is accepting an input. What input do we put in? We need to put in the name that was received from the post. This. So I'll just copy and paste that. And that's it. So we can get rid of this now, and all it took was just one line which has been prepared in this function, and we can repeat that for the rest. So let me test this out first to see if there wasn't anything wrong with my code. So Robert with the slash and submit, and you can see it's working fine. I'll just repeat for the rest now. So this time I'll just copy this. So the input validator this time will be email. And get rid of this. Email. Okay. I'll speed up the rest. Alright, so I'm done. Everything is okay. I think everything checks out. Let's do one more validation to complete this form project, which is to check if the email is a correct one. We still don't trust the validation from the front end. So inside of the email, right after we have validated the email, looks like I forgot my semicolons. If I had run this, I would have had a lot of errors. Alright, so right after validating the input from the email, we want to check if it really is a correct email. So there's a function for this called filter var. And filter var does a lot of things. And what we want to check for is the filter validate email, which checks if emails are written in the correct format. So what I want to check for now is the email. And now I'll type the filter validate email, just like this. So this will have its separate message. I'll set it to the same email error. So this time it's not the required that we are checking. So I'll change the text to email is incorrect, just like this. Let me go over this one more time. So right after checking it's not empty, then it validates the email. If the email entered wasn't correct, then it displays this message that email is incorrect. So let's save this and quickly test it out. So reloading this, it says, let me test it out with random values. Robert, let's type anything, mail, and an empty message. So this is the front end validation. And what I'll do is I'll disable that. Let's pretend we are hacker and we are disabling it through the front end. So the input type is email. I'll just change this now to something else. So this won't detect if I'm manipulating anything. So if I send this now, it's not working. The final output is the message below. So everything else printed except the email, which means I might have an error in my code. Let's see if I can find what I'm doing wrong. Okay, everything. Oh, okay, so this was the problem. I am checking if the email is correct. So what I need to do is turn this into a negative value, like reverse this command. So all I have to do is add the exclamation mark, if you remember that from our previous lesson. So we are saying if it filtered and this email is not a correct one. Okay, so I'll save this now and I hope everything works perfectly. Now when I reload, you can see it's telling me email is incorrect. But when I just leave it empty just like that and submit, it has a different message that email field is required. There are better ways to check for all of this using regex and so much more. But this is a basic overview of form handling. We don't want to go too advanced. Alright, thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed making this project with me. See you in the next ones.